Welcome to the final part of our 10k subs celebration. 2 years ago I made the video Rogues Top 10 Bat Rogues. It was to celebrate my channel having reached 1k subs. At the end of the video I said I would probably remake it at some point. At least I think I said that. I haven't watched it since I made it. I simply can't stand my old videos, they're terrible. Anyway, here we are 2 years later and I'm remaking the video. So I wasn't a liar. This time we're obviously going for 20 rogues instead of 10 though. If I'm gonna remake the video, I'm sure as hell gonna make it grander. I will not include any obscure or forgotten villains on this list though, only the bigger ones. I'll make a separate video for the top 10 or 20 forgotten supervillains at another point. Anyway, write down your favorite 20 or 100 Batman villains in the comments. I've also left a link to the old video in the description, in case you want to compare the two. Number 20. Calendar Man. I'll keep each of these entries brief, otherwise this video will be 2 hours long. Anyway, Julian Day, aka the Calendar Man, is considered a pathetic, goofy, loser joke villain by most. But I just don't get why. How are dates goofier than riddles or penguins? They're not, and Calendar Man easily could have been one of Batman's A-list villains. I think the problem might be that no one's ever written a truly great Calendar Man comic. There are no really good stories with the guy, he's never been portrayed quite right. We're still waiting for the proper Julian Day to appear, and that is why I also rank him so low on the list. I probably would have put him higher if the comics had done him more justice. Or a cartoon show or a movie, it doesn't have to be a comic. I'll take anything with a great Calendar Man. Number 19. Bane. I know someone just unsubbed. Bane is super popular, but I've never been the biggest fan of the character. Of course, some people seem to interpret that as me saying I dislike Bane. That's not what it means. I do like Bane, just not as much as most seem to do. Bane has a great and interesting backstory, and he's fairly sympathetic, yet intimidating at the same time. The Venom gimmick is also cool and pretty unique among the Bat-Rogues. After all, how many of Batman's enemies are physical threats? Not that many. Well, Bane is both a massive physical threat and an intellectual one. Number 18. Ra's al Ghul. And yes, I say Ra's al Ghul, not Raish. Stop correcting me. Raish fanatics are worse than grammar Nazis. There is no proper way to say his name. Watch the NerdSync video, they covered that. Denny O'Neil didn't even know himself, so he asked someone else and they just guessed Ra's al Ghul. That's why you got Raish in the animated series, you pretentious nerd. Anyway, so Ra's is another Bat villain who I'm not that crazy about, but others seem to absolutely love. Just like Bane though, I do still like him a lot. He adds a different kind of flavor to Batman, a sort of a mix of pulpy Fu Manchu and James Bond spy stuff. He can also be very interesting, not so much when he's a tree hugger, more so when he views humanity as corrupt. Basically a radical version of Bruce Wayne. And also the immortality thing is really cool and definitely unique among Bat-Rogues. I wish we someday get a globe-trotting adventurous Indiana Jones style Batman movie with Ra's as the villain. Number 17. Hugo Strange. Hugo Strange looks very generic, and that's why I've never been able to call him one of my absolute favorite Bat-Rogues. Ignoring his boring design though, the character himself is just fantastic. A psychiatrist or mad scientist, depending on the continuity, who's completely obsessed with Batman. It's not in the same way as the Joker though. Hugo wants to be the Batman. He envies Batman of his prowess and freedom to gallivant the night sky. Hugo has a sort of romanticized view of Batman, like some sort of sexy, powerful night creature. Basically, he's got issues and a pretty poor self-image, although he probably wouldn't admit that himself. A fascinating villain who you could spend hours analyzing. I'm not gonna do that though, someone else will have to do it. Number 16. Maxi Zeus. So here we have another one like Calendar Man, a villain who's considered an absolute joke by most fans. I've always really liked old Maxi though, a crazy eccentric mob boss who thinks that he is a god. What's not to love about that? He's basically a perfect Batman villain, mad and a gangster. Being as crazy as he is, Maxi is one of the most entertaining Bat-Rogues out there. His arrogance makes the Riddler look bashful. Unlike Calendar Man though, Maxi actually used to be a big deal. Back in the Bronze Age of comics, he was in fact one of Batman's main foes. He was treated entirely seriously too. I mean, as a threat, there was nothing serious about his personality. So there are actually good stories with the character. If I ever write a run on Batman, which I never will of course, I'll bring back both Calendar Man and Maxi Zeus in big ways. The crazy old bastards deserve it. Number 15. Ventriloquist and Scarface. So here we have the weirdest duo in the entire Gotham City underworld. For ages, a lot of people have asked me to do a video about this pair. To be fair, I have done one, a review of his debut episode on the animated series, so it's not like I've completely ignored him, and I'm talking about him now. Arnold Wesker is a fascinating case of a split personality. Basically, his dummy, Scarface, is all he'd like to be, a tough, self-confident criminal genius. It's through this dummy that he gets to truly be himself. Of course, it's also through this dummy that he expresses his self-hatred. Another villain you could analyze the crap out of. Wesker is also incredibly entertaining, being as kooky as he is. I love the old school James Cagney gangster style of the dummy. Clearly Wesker, being the nerd that he is, has simply watched too many gangster movies. Of course, you could also theorize that the dummy is actually alive, which puts a supernatural spin on the character. Number 14, Black Mask. For me, this character is in the same boat as Calendar Man. We've never really gotten a truly great version of him. Black Mask has better stories than Julian though, and he's certainly got a better reputation. Despite the lack of a definitive Roman Sionis, the character still has tons of fans. I'm not quite satisfied with him though. I feel he can do better, a lot better. This is why I don't rank him even higher on the list. I definitely would have put him in my top 10 if he'd been handled better. Like I've said a million times in the past, I don't like the modern Black Mask. He's all about torture when he's supposed to be about masks. His name is Black Mask, not Torture Man. The original Black Mask wasn't that great either though. His origin was a convoluted mess and his motivations were a bit weak. What you need to do is retool the original Black Mask and you have a perfect villain. Number 13, Harley Quinn. So yet another extremely popular Batman villain who doesn't rank that high on my list. Still, 13 isn't too bad. I feel that Harley Quinn has, in the last few years, become the most overrated supervillain in the history of mankind. It started sometime after the New 52 reboot, when Harley began to appear everywhere, and now she's getting her own film series and her own animated cartoon. Whatever happened to the good old days when she was simply Mr. J's wacky sidekick? I miss those days, and I'm old enough to remember them too. Kids these days grew up with Harley being DC's #1 villain. Oh right, I was actually supposed to praise Harley here, not whine about her. Well, with that old man rant, I think you've gotten the gist of my views on Harley. She used to be great. A tragic comedic character who you laughed at and felt sorry for at the same time. Poor Harleen, so deluded by the evil Joker. I don't even know what a modern Harley is. A freaking superhero? I don't know. Are they fucking kidding? Number 12, Man-Bat. Man-Bat was my honorary mention on the last video, so basically my number 11. Now he's gotten bumped down to 12, but that doesn't mean I like him any less. I love Man-Bat. You know the drill, well-meaning scientist, blah 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 blah. Man-Bat is such a tragic character and a really cool monster. He'd be perfect for a horror Batman movie. When am I getting my Batman vs Man-Bat horror movie, WB? Make it straight up R, with lots of gore, guts, severed heads, and even some nude shots of Francine. So yeah, Man-Bat is great. He actually is everything that Batman only pretends to be, a bat monster stalking the night. What a fitting adversary. Number 11, Clayface. Last time I featured Clayface 3, Preston Payne, but since obscure villains aren't appearing this time, he won't show up here. We do get the Clayface though, the main Clayface, Basil Karlo, or Matt Hagen, whatever, they're both great actually. I do prefer Karlo though. Him getting clay powers makes more sense than Hagen. Hagen is just a cheap hood, while Karlo is an actor. He was already a shapeshifter before becoming a shapeshifter. It's perfect. I'm kinda glad Karlo is the one and only Clayface these days. He really should be, because he's a character that works the best thematically. Still, I do like the other Clayfaces of course. Maybe they should rename them, at least Preston. Anyway, Clayface is another very unique Batman villain. No other Batrogue is so fantastical. A freaking heap of clay that shapes itself into anything. Not really Batsy's regular repertoire. And just like Man-Bat, Clayface really needs to appear in a movie. A great way to differentiate yourself from the realistic Nolan films would be to use Karlo as the villain. Number 10, Mr. Freeze. So now we're getting into the top 10. Things won't be quite the same as last time though, as you're already noticing. Last time Mr. Freeze was nowhere to be seen, not even an honorary mention. I just wasn't really that into Mr. Freeze back then. I think mainly because outside of a few adaptations, he really sucks. Even my top 5 best Mr. Freeze stories aren't that good. I wouldn't put any of them in my top 50 Batman comics. But I don't really care anymore. I love him despite the fact most versions suck. I guess I've grown to appreciate Freeze more over the course of these 2 2 years. During that time, I've done several videos on the character, and I've been forced to think about him more. I've realized something that I didn't back then. I used to feel that the only compelling part about Freeze was his dying wife, Nora, but not no more. I've talked about this recently. His condition, his terrible curse, being cut off from the rest of humanity, trapped in a containment suit. These are the truly fascinating aspects of Freeze to me now. I'd actually like to see stories that even excludes Nora and simply explores these tropes. Yeah, Freeze is looking a lot cooler to me now. Number 9. The Mad Hatter. On the last video, Jervis was number 10, so he's moved up a spot. Good for you, Jervis. Is it you, JJ, who's influencing me? Maybe you've put a chip in my hatband. I'm honestly not quite sure why I like the Hatter more now, but I do know that I do. I actually considered putting him even higher on the list, but then came to my senses, because I do prefer the remaining entries. Nevertheless, the Mad Hatter is just a wonderfully whimsical and bizarre character. I know most of his comics suck, but it's the concept of the character that I love so much. And I'm not even a fan of the Wonderland books. I actually haven't even read them. Sorry, JJ. It's kinda odd. I like the Hatter so much regardless. Then of course there's the animated series version of Jervis, and as I've repeated ad nauseum, that is the real Hatter to me. By the way, another video I should probably remake is my top 5 TAS villains video. I wasn't entirely honest on that one. Number 8. Killer Croc. Now, Croc here has been bumped down a spot since last time. Does that mean I like him any less? Actually yes, it does, although just a tiny bit. Croc has taken the exact opposite journey as Mr. Freeze. He's great in the comics, but I've realized that he kinda sucks in everything else. Well, maybe not sucks, but he's nowhere near as good as in his source material. I also haven't done anything with the character in these past 2 years. I've wanted to, but haven't been able to figure out what. Maybe a complete history video could be down the line sometime, but that won't be for a long while. I'm thinking something smaller, something I could do right now. Anyway, I think it's about time we started to see the tragic Croc from the comics in other media. Most people only regard Croc as a simple monster, a big lizard guy, basically a villain from a Saturday morning cartoon. But that's not what he is. Croc is an incredibly layered and compelling rogue, a sad freak who only wants peace of mind. Where's my Elephant Man styled Killer Croc movie, WB? Number 7. Poison Ivy. I guess Pam here switched places with Croc. I love Pam. Who doesn't love Pam? We all love her. She kinda forces us to. The reason I love Pam so much, besides green cleavage, is because she's so utterly deranged, sexy and insane. My kinda woman. I actually find Pam's lunacy to be more interesting than Harley's. Harley, when she's not written right that is, which is most of the time, is more just haha insane. You know, look at me, I'm crazy. Pam on the other hand is truly insane. She actually displays her insanity. She thinks that plants are alive. I mean alive. She thinks she can talk to plants. She regards plants as superior to all other creatures. She hates humans, which I can relate to, by the way. Pam is an antisocial, sexy lunatic. Why aren't we married already? Well, probably because I'm not a plant. And like I said last time, you can portray her as either pure evil or sympathetic. Both versions work equally well. Number 6. Catwoman. Kitty stays put. She's still my number 6. I couldn't possibly move her down the list. It's freaking Selina Kyle. My feelings for Selina has changed a bit though. And no, I'm still in love with her, but what I mean is, I've grown kinda bored of the modern anti-hero Selina. Even the 90s Jim Ballant version. Still love that design though. I think ever since I watched all those Julie Newmar episodes, I've begun to gravitate more towards a villainous Catwoman. Maybe I'll gravitate back to the anti-hero, but for now, I just want to see Catwoman the villain. The Catwoman who was just another member of the Rogues Gallery. Well, not quite just another member. She's always gotten special treatment because Batman's got the hots for her. But you know what I mean. You can still make her a tragic villain. That's what they did anyway back in the pre-crisis era. I guess I'll just stick to those comics for now. Number 5. The Penguin. So Pengy doesn't move either. Again, another one I couldn't possibly move down the list. I don't feel like moving him up either. Penguin is a perfect number 5 for me, just barely scratching the top 5, the cream of the crop. I love old Pengy a lot, and I mean a lot, but still not quite as much as the other 4. So yeah, number 5 is perfect for him. I don't think that'll ever change. Penguin is such a staple in the Batman mythos. He's as important as the Batmobile itself, at least in my opinion. He is also a wonderfully odd and quirky character, a fat guy with a top hat and umbrella who looks like a penguin. I don't know what's going on here, but I know I love it. People who don't like the Penguin because they think he's goofy or whatever, those people are insane, and not in a good way. Number 4. The Joker. Again, same as last time. When I complain about the Joker, it's not really the Joker I'm complaining about. It's actually the fans and creators I'm complaining about. Creators who put the Joker in everything, and fans who thinks that the Joker is the only Batman villain. They're the ones who are doing wrong, not the Joker. Well, besides when he's murdering people. There's nothing wrong with the Joker himself. He's actually perfect. Would I put him higher on the list if it weren't for these issues? I don't know. Maybe I would have in the past, before I even started this channel. But I actually don't think so any longer. I love the Joker a lot, but I do like the other three even more. So yeah, I think at number 4 is simply where the Joker belongs for me. And that is a great number. Seriously, if you complain about number 4, you're out of your mind. Number 3, the Riddler. Well, here's a bit of a difference. I don't like the Riddler any less though, I'm just feeling someone else a bit more right now. Anyway, you gotta love that smug bastard Eddie Nygma. After Maxie Zeus, he's the most arrogant prick in the Gotham underworld. Of course, as some of you may have noticed, I'm very picky with my Riddler. I've got a very specific ideal of what the Riddler should be. He should be a smug, arrogant jerk. His goal should be to prove his superior intellect, not money or solving the ultimate riddle or anything else. His motivation is a desire for attention and praise. He takes no pleasure in killing and in fact avoids killing, only doing it when it's absolutely necessary. And of course when he's possessed by a demon. He's a scrawny geek and not a hunky beefcake. He wears bright green at all times and is not ashamed of it. And yeah, I think that's about it. I might be forgetting something, but those are the key points. I don't like it when we deviate from these points, but of course that happens a lot, and what the hell can I do about it? Number 2, the Scarecrow. Obviously you saw that coming. Yes, it's true, right now I'm feeling Crane a bit more than Nygma. Why? I don't know. It's just been like that for the past few months. As you may recall, I said in the last video that I basically like Crane and Eddie equally. Sometimes I just lean a bit more towards one of them over the other. It keeps going back and forth. Last time it was Eddie, now it's Johnny. Next time it'll probably be Eddie again. And so it goes on and on. Unlike Eddie though, I have no specific ideal of what Crane should be like. Except that he should preferably be scary. He hasn't been handled as well in the comics or other media, so I don't really feel there is a definitive Scarecrow. He's a bit of a blank for me, and I'm welcome to any attempts at reimagining the character. I guess it's the concept of the Scarecrow I really love, and I always will. And now for my number 1. Yeah, you all know who it is. Two-Face. It's Two-Face. So what can I say about Two-Face? Two-Face is basically the meaning of life. I'm obsessed with Two-Face. I think Two-Face is the best thing since sliced bread. In fact, he's better than sliced bread. I'd take Two-Face over sliced bread any day. It's pretty inevitable by now, but I'll probably scar half of my face with acid and start making all of my decisions based on a coin flip. Maybe I've already done it. How would you know? I haven't showed myself on camera in 2 years. At the very least, I'll start a Two-Face cult and brainwash people into dedicating their lives to the great Harvey Dent. So there you have it, Rogue's top 20 Bat Rogues. Next time I guess we'll make it a top 40. Anyway, I've gotta go pray by my Two-Face altar now, you know the drill, the asylum awaits you in the next video.